Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiriyet Shavtam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shamana Kirtanaha Hridayantasto Hya Bhadrani Vidunoti Sruhasatam Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna. So last Sunday we covered Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto, chapter 82. Lord Krishna and Balaram meets the inhabitants of Vrindavan. Where we covered that during the solar eclipse, a great solar eclipse that was occurring, the Yadus, they decided to perform sacrifices at Kurukshetra. And at that time, Vrindavan, inhabitants of Vrindavan, the residents of Vrindavan, they used this opportunity to also come to this Kurukshetra, the venue for sacrifices that were being performed. So at the sacrificial arena, Yadus were really shining out, and at the same time, they were able to meet with the inhabitants of Vrindavan, and Vasudeva met with Queen Kunti as well, where that conversation was important because the Pandavas, they had also come, the Kurus had also come during this occasion. And then the important conversation between Lord Krishna and the gopis ensued, where, gopis, they asked for the boon, and the boon was that Lord's lotus feet may always be manifested in their hearts. So let's cover the very first verse. Today we'll be covering Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto, chapter 83. Draupadi meets the Queens of Krishna. And this is the continuation of the pastime at Kurukshetra. Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto, chapter 83, first verse. Shri Shuka Uvacha Tathanugraha Bhagavan Gopinam sa gurur gatihi Yudhishtiram athapracha Sarvamscha surhrido avyayam. Shishuka Uvacha. Shukdev Goswami said, Tatha, in this way, Anugrahya, showing favor, Bhagwan, the Supreme Lord, Gopinam, of the young cowherd women, Saha, he, Guruhu, their spiritual master, Gatihi, and goal. Yudhishtiram, from Yudhishthir, Atha, then, Aprachat, he inquired. Sarvan, also, Cha, and Surhridaha, his well-wishing relatives, Avyayam, welfare. Translation by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Shukdev Goswami said, thus, Lord Krishna, the spiritual master of the gopis, and the very purpose of their life, showed them his mercy. He then met with Yudhishthir and all his other relatives and inquired from them about their welfare. Purport. The word Guru Gati have been translated here in their usual sense, spiritual master and goal. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, however, points out an additional meaning. While Lord Krishna is the goal of all sadhus in general, for the gopis specifically, he is that goal which is Guru, predominant, in the sense of completely eclipsing the significance of all other possible goals. Hare Krishna. Om Jnana Timurandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripa Tadaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So there are many wonderful lessons, and this is a very sweet pastime, and it reveals many secrets that is not, those are not very well known to the general populace. The three lessons that we'll be focusing today are going to be, first is, after meeting the gopis, Lord Krishna met with Yudhishthira and his other relatives and asked for their welfare and their response. And then the second aspect is going to be where Queen Draupadi, she will meet the queens of Krishna and inquires from them as how they, came in contact with Krishna and how Krishna, married them. So she is eager to know of those incidents. And there are how many queens? 16,108. So there are 8 primary queens, and then there is a queen by the name Queen Rukmini Devi, and she is going to be the representative of the 16,099 other queens as well. And then the third aspect that we'll cover is, which will be continuation of the previous lesson and the conclusion we had from chapter 82, as how one should take shelter and what are the symptoms of a pure devotee who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna. So when Lord Krishna, after meeting with gopis, came back to the sacrificial arena, he saw Yudhishthira and the Pandavas and his other relatives, and he inquired from them, as a matter of etiquette, that how are you? Is everything good? So as he's inquiring for their welfare, Srila Prabhupada in Krishna book explains very nicely that there is no question of ill fortune for the devotees who have surrendered themselves to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. And so, Yudhishthira, he's very enthusiastic in responding, and he's, he feels happy to share, because anytime devotees get to glorify the Lord, they take that opportunity to glorify Him. And Yudhishthira Maharaj says that how can there be any ill fortune to someone who is surrendered to your lotus feet? Because they are immersed in the nectarian honey, the transcendental bliss that comes out of your pastimes, name, form, activities, pastimes. So Yudhishthira Maharaj is glorifying the Lord. And just like a bee is only interested in honey and not of any other things, while Srila Prabhupada also gave the metaphor of fly, which wanders anywhere and sits on auspicious and inauspicious things, but that's not the business of a bee. Bee is very much focused in tasting the nectar, the honey of the flowers. And so similarly the devotees, they are always attracted to the name, form, activities, pastimes of the Supreme Lord. And when devotees are so attracted and surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord, how can there be any misfortune? And so devotees are very fortunate, and glorifying Lord Krishna, he is further elaborating that this nectarian honey goes through the ears of the devotees, and their heart is imbued. And when these devotees of the Lord, they speak about the name, form, activities, pastimes of the Lord, glorifying the Lord, at that time, the same nectar comes out from their mouths, and they sprinkle it everywhere. And so anyone who is in material distress, if somehow or other the person gets to hear the glories of the Lord and His various pastimes, then the person can also hear that honey, can also taste that honey through the ears, which, enters into the heart and removes all the inauspiciousness. As Yudhishthira Maharaj is conversing with Lord Krishna and other relatives, they are describing how fortunate they are and they are fully surrendered to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Queen Draupadi, she meets, and the ladies are also, the Kuru's ladies and the Yadu ladies, they are also conversing with each other. And Draupadi uses this opportunity to ask the very first question. And she is basically inquiring and she says, "Oh, Vaidarbhi, O Satyabhama, O Jamvati, O Kalendi, O Mitravinda, O Satya, O Bhadra, O Lakshmana, O Rukmini Devi, Rohini Devi." So this Rohini is not the mother of Balaram. She is one of the prime queens amongst the 16,100 queens that Lord Krishna saved from Bhaumasu's captivity. So she's asking, Draupadi is asking, how come you met Krishna? How come Krishna married you? And please narrate those incidents to me. So how did that happen? She's very eager to hear that nectarian pastime. So at that time, Queen Rukmini, she's the first one. Vaidarbhi is her other name. So she's the first one to respond. And she says, "Oh, at my marriage, at the Swayamvar ceremony, actually all the kings and princes, they were gathered and they were, bound to marry me to Shishupal. Because her brother Rukmi, he had already promised Shishupal to give his sister Rukmini Devi in marriage to him. And Jarasandh and other, kings at that time, they had gathered with all their armor and their armies to make sure that any other person who tries to, marry or challenge Shishupal, that they can defeat that personality. And they were suspecting who's that personality who could be opposing? Lord Krishna. So it just so happened that, further she continues describing that, but Lord Krishna, he appeared like a lion and picked her up from the midst of the lower animals. Just from the flock of lower animals, surrounded by the flock of lower animals. He just picked her up and took her away. And so she is serving him as his maidservant in Dwarka, in one of his houses. So again, this is glorifying that she is telling that even though she is the wife of Lord Krishna, her main duty is as maidservant. And also, in the past time, in her activities, it is very nicely described that even though she had thousands of maidservants, but she always loved to herself serve Lord Krishna. So when Lord Krishna would return in the evening, she would wash his feet, serve him nice prasadam, with the charmer, she would fan him, and so forth. So she would constantly serve and be always immersed in that attitude of serving. So she calls herself maidservant of Lord Krishna in one of his houses. Then Jamvati describes that my father Jamvan, when Lord Krishna came to take away the Samantika jewel, and the servant, the lady Jamvan had, the maidservant, she cried out, and Jamvan came, and seeing that someone was trying to snatch away the jewel from his son, he immediately in anger attacked Lord Krishna. And Lord Krishna and Jamvan, how many days did they fight for? 28 days. So after 27 days, Jamvan suddenly started feeling tired, fatigued, because of the blows of the Lord's fists. And so he immediately realized that there is no other personality in the three worlds who could defeat Jamvan. So this personality he is fighting with is none other than his lordship, Lord Ramchandra, because only by Lord Ramchandra can be defeated. So except for Lord Ramchandra, there is no one who can defeat him. And so he immediately recognizes and holds the feet of Lord Krishna. And as his reverence, in his attitude of reverence, he gives him the Samantika jewel and also offers his daughter Jambavati in marriage to Lord Krishna. And Lord Krishna, very gladly, he accepts Jambavati as his wife. Now Satyabhama, she narrates her incident that her father Satrajit, having, realized that his brother, Prasena, could have been killed, he actually blamed Lord Krishna, and that was a rumor he spread that Lord Krishna was interested in Samantika jewel, so he must have killed my brother Prasena. So Prasena happens to be, uncle, because, brother of Satyajit. So she was saying that when my uncle Prasena was killed and Lord Krishna was so falsely accused, Lord Krishna went out in search of the Samantika jewel, and he found the Samantika jewel and returned. And at that time, he gave that jewel to Satyajit. But during this incident, while Lord Krishna, he had gone, and actually Prasena was killed by a lion. And further, the lion had taken the Samantika jewel, and Jamban had killed the lion. Jamban was, the leader of the Rakshas, not Rakshasas, Rakshas. And he had taken the Samantika jewel. Now it's very interesting that the Samantika jewel he had taken from the lion, he didn't find it very interesting, so he gave it to his son who was playing as a toy. And when Lord Krishna received that, so actually he entered the cave of the Rakshas. So he was along with his associates when he had reached that cave. And after waiting for 12 days, those the folks who were waiting, the associates of Lord Krishna who had gone with him to search for Samantika jewel, they thought that something bad must have happened. And so they returned back to Dwarka, while Lord Krishna was still fighting with Jamban. So after 27 days, on 28th day, when Jamban realized, he returned the Samantika jewel, Lord Krishna returned. So from 13th day onward to 28th day, everyone in Dwarka was morose, because they realized that because of Satyajit, Lord Krishna, something bad may have happened to him. Of course, they knew that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but that's the feeling towards a loved one. Even knowing, you are always thinking that nothing bad should happen to your loved ones. So in that mood, they were, accusing Satyajit. And when Lord Krishna returned with the Samantika jewel, Satyajit felt very guilty. He felt guilty for having accused Krishna wrongly. And so he realized what has happened. Now Krishna, he returned with the Samantika jewel, and he also returned with Jamvati. So there was so much, jubilation in the air, and everyone was celebrating that particular occasion. So similarly, Satyajit devised a plan. Even though he had promised hand of Satyabhama to many other princes and other personalities like Akrur, to Kritvarma and others, he realized that how can he turn the situation in his favor, and he decided to give his daughter Satyabhama in marriage to Lord Krishna. So Lord Krishna accepted Satyabhama at that time and returned the jewel back to Satyajit. So Satyabhama narrates this incident. And after Satyabhama, Queen Kalindi, she says that she had been performing many austerities at the bank of Yamuna. And Lord Krishna, along with Arjun, he came. And at that time, seeing Kalindi, at the bank of Yamuna, Arjun approached her, asking what's the purpose, why is she there, and and who she is, and so forth, to inquire about her. And Krishna had actually prompted this, Arjun to ask. He had prompted Arjun to ask who this lady is. And at that time, Kalindi had revealed to Arjun that she had been performing great austerities and living under the waters of Yamuna to marry Lord Vishnu, who's none other than Krishna. So at that time, Krishna marries Kalindi when he brings her back to Dwarka, and they are married with great pomp and celebration. After Kalindi, Queen Satya, she narrates her story that her father, he had actually decided to stipulate that to win her hand, a prospective suitor would have to subdue and tie up 7 powerful bulls. So there was a specific challenge being placed to the possible suitor, to find the possible suitor in this case. And so, when Lord Krishna went and he met Nagnajit. Nagnajit is the name of, the king, the father of Satya. So Satya is also known as Nagnajiti. And Lord Krishna, after hearing that he wants the suitor, to defeat the 7 bulls, Lord Krishna very easily, like a child plays with, toys, very easily subdued the bulls. And how do you subdue bull? Again, it is the rope that you pass to the nostril to control the bull. So he very easily not just control, and he was able to, we call it in Hindi, nakel dalna, for a bull. So through the nose, so the center of the nose, a rope is passed through, and he was able to subdue the 7 bulls. And thus, he married Satya. And Nagnajit also gave many soldiers and phalanxes and thousands of maid servants in dowry. After Satya, Bhadra said that Lord Krishna was invited by her father. Lord Krishna was her maternal brother, so maternal cousin. So when he was invited, Krishna, and she had already heard so much glories of Lord Krishna that she had given her heart already to Lord Krishna. And so, her father offered to Lord Krishna Bhadra as his wife. And so that continues, and how, he had given a whole entire military phalanx known as Akshahini, to Lord Krishna, along with many nicely dressed in silken clothes and golden ornaments, many thousands of maidservants. Queen Mitravinda said that when Lord Krishna, he came to her Swayamvar, he defeated all the opposing princes and won her over, and he took her to Dwarka. So that's how it continued. So as, all these queens, they are describing the wonderful pastime as how they happened to marry Lord Krishna, and how wonderfully, if you pay attention, they're all glorifying Krishna, as how wonderfully Krishna is, answering their prayers. They wanted to be, serving Krishna. They wanted to serve Krishna and wanted to be his maidservants life after life, and each of them is ending their narration by that Lord Krishna has accepted me as his maidservant in one of his houses. So with that mood, they continue to explain. Now after Bhadra and Mitravinda comes Lakshmana. So Queen Lakshmana, she says that during her Swayamvar, her father had devised a challenge which was similar to that of Draupadi's. There was a fish in the ceiling which was rotating. And, whoever is the possible suitor, means to be the right suitor, the warrior had to look in the water at the reflection and pierce. However, they pierce the eye of the fish. So the specific target is the eye of the fish. And in this particular incident, the difference she identifies is that in case of Draupadi, the fish was open. So anyone who could see up could see the fish at the pillar. However, in case of Mitravinda's marriage ceremony, it was encaged from all sides. It was in an enclosure, like a meshed enclosure, and that enclosure was also moving. So again, as the fish was rotating, the enclosure was also. So with the mesh, it's very difficult to see. And Srila Sridhar Swami explains that someone who has to shoot in this particular incident has to simultaneously look up and down, which is not possible for an embodied living being. So this was a perfect plan devised by her father so that only Lord Krishna would be successful. So many warriors, many princes, many kings, they came. When they heard such a nice challenge being planned, everybody wants to show their valor, especially Kshatriya. They want to show, and they feel very proud for having achieved a target which is very difficult to achieve. So many princes, when they even tried, and the kings, they tried, even to put the pratyancha, even to put a bowstring on the bow, they were not able to do it. They failed in doing that. Some of them were able to put the string on one side, but when they tried to put this bowstring onto the other end of the bow was so strong that it sprung on them and hit them, and they fell. So they left the arena in frustration. At the same time, there were other kings who were able to put the bowstring, like Jarasandha, Bhima, Karna, Duryodhana. and some of the kings, the great warriors who had come to win her over in Swayamvar. So at that time, it just so happened that Lord Krishna was also there. So all these warriors had tried. Bhimsen had also tried, Duryodhana had also tried, and they had missed the target. So, after, putting the bowstring properly, when they put the arrow and try to shoot, they have to look down while, shooting up at the moving fish, which is under a mesh enclosure, which is also rotating, so it's very difficult to concentrate. Yet at the same time, they all missed, and when Arjun came, he was able to put the bowstring nicely, he aimed, and when he shot his arrow, it barely touched. So it touched the fish, but missed the target, the eye of the fish. So at that time, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur as well as Sridhar Swami, they explained that Arjun, having touched the fish, proved himself to be better than all the other warriors. Yet at the same time, since he was not able to meet the challenge, he was not able to pierce the eye of the fish. He could not win her over. Then Lord Krishna came. And like a child, ties things, very easily, in that manner, like a child playing with that bow, he easily tied the bow. And then he put one arrow onto the bow, ready to shoot, and just by looking once at the reflection of the fish, he pierced the eye of the fish. And the fish immediately fell to the ground after being pierced. And there was huge jubilation everywhere, because when this incident happened, it was the Abhijit Nakshatra. So again, there is constellations and so forth. So there are different time of the day, the different muhurtas. And Abhijit Muhurta is where the sun is at its top. So Sridhar Swami explains that when sun was at that noon time, right above, in the middle of the sky, the hitting of the target was even more difficult. And when Lord Krishna successfully, hit the target, the eye of the fish, there was great jubilation. Everybody, started cheering with Jai, Jai, and there were mirdangas playing, kartals, and, so many other instruments were playing, and people were dancing. There were great dancers and singers. They started dancing and singing. And while Lakshmana, she was explaining this, she lost herself, and she started explaining that as soon as she heard, and she had already surrendered to Lord Krishna's lotus feet, she had already been meditating on his lotus feet, she immediately came out wearing fine silken clothes and holding a golden necklace in her hand, which glittered because of the gems. And as she was walking, she was smiling very nicely. And this is where Srila Vishwanath Thakur explains that she had given up her shyness because of her ecstatic mood. She was feeling so jubilant that she forgot her shyness. And there she continues further to Draupadi and others. She continues to describe about her situation as how her curly locks were, on her face, and how she was smiling. And after observing all the princes and kings gathered there, she went to Lord Krishna and she put that golden necklace around his neck. And at that time, seeing Lakshmana, so beautiful and young princess, many of the kings who were gathered at that arena, being foolish because they had just seen how Krishna had won her over by meeting the requirement of that challenge, they immediately opposed. So Lord Krishna immediately manifested his four-armed Narayan form. And Daruk came with his chariot, and Lord Krishna immediately picked her up, Lakshmana, and carried her to the chariot, and he picked up his Sharanga bow. So it is very nicely described that Lord Krishna used two of his arms to hold Lakshmana when he was on the chariot, and Daruk immediately fled towards Dwarka. While on the other two hands, Lord Krishna held the Sharanga bow and the arrows, and he started shooting the arrows at these kings who were opposing him. And at the gate, when these kings, they were trying to stop Lord Krishna, check his advances, Lord Krishna arrows, he severed many of their legs, many of their arms, and many of them lost their heads and their lives in the process. So this is described as the foolishness of the kings and princes who wanted to stop Lord Krishna because they had become lusty after seeing Lakshmana. And so Lord Krishna, he won Lakshmana. And when Lakshmana was describing this incident, suddenly she realized that she was actually glorifying her own, how she appeared at the Swayamvar and how she approached Lord Krishna. So she became suddenly conscious of that. And immediately she responded that, oh, but Lord Krishna has accepted me so nicely, so I am as a maid servant, I am serving him. And Kalindi had previously even said that I am working as a sweeper in his palace. So that's the mood of these queens. They are wives of Krishna, but their mood is that they are the maid servants of Lord Shri Krishna, serving him. Shri Shri Gaurantai ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan ki jai. Shri Shri Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai. Ananta Kori Vaishnavinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, and then after Lakshmana describes Rohini Devi representing the 16,099 other wives of Krishna, describes that how Lord Krishna, he had released them by killing Bhaumasur. He had released them from the captivity of Bhaumasur. Bhaumasur is also known as Narakasur. So, and after releasing and freeing them from the captivity, Lord Krishna appeared, and all these princesses, they had already surrendered themselves, and they were immediately captivated by the beauty of Lord Shri Krishna. He appeared at the arena, at the in the midst of all these princesses, and they begged him to marry them, and Lord Krishna immediately accepted, and that's how all these princesses, they were married to Lord Krishna. So 16,100 queens, were married to Lord Krishna once again. So these queens are describing. There is a special aspect to this. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that Rohini Devi, who is other than mother of Lord Balaram, Mother Rohini, she is a different personality and this is a different personality. Rohini Devi, she is expressing that after having heard the glories of Lord Krishna from Mother Rohini, the mother of Lord Balaram, all these queens, they wanted to be like the grass and the creepers in Vrindavan, to be able to touch the lotus feet, dust of the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna, just like the gopis, the gopa boys and the aborigine girls in Vrindavan. So that was a very significant aspect, and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explained that this was the cause of they being abducted. So after the Maushal Leela, the destruction of the Yadu dynasty, these 16,100 queens, when they were being taken by Arjuna from Dwarka to Hastinapur, in the midst of the way, so while taking them, after the Maushal Leela, Krishna had appeared as the 16,000 cowherd men, and he had defeated Arjuna and taken away these queens, and those cowherd men had taken these queens to where? To Gokul. So Acharyas have explained that. Now it's very important for us to understand these lessons in proper perspective. So at this point the lesson, the chapter ends. And let's look back at the important lesson where, as we look back, the very first aspect. So now we are going to go into each of those two conversations. So the first conversation where Lord Krishna had asked Yudhishthir and his other relatives about their welfare, King Yudhishthir was explaining that how can there be any ill fortune. Now there is a common conception, which sometimes can be considered as a misconception, that Krishna created this material world which is so bad. So now we have to look at it with a proper perspective. And remembering Srila Prabhupada, there is one of the incident that we can refer to. One of his disciples asked Srila Prabhupada, why did Krishna create this material world which is so full of miseries? Srila Prabhupada immediately refuted that question. He rejected it and he said, it is not Krishna who created this world which is full of miseries, it is you. It is the living entities who have created this, who have made this world full of miseries. So now the essence in that particular response is that Krishna created this material world perfectly, but it is the attitude, the desires of living entity to enjoy and to be engaged in sense gratification that has made this material world a place of misery. Srila Prabhupada on many incidents identified and many times instructed in his classes that this material world is complete to serve its purpose. It has sufficient grain to satisfy all the populace. However, because of the mentality, the selfish mentality of the living entities, that is not the case, and especially the human beings. So now let's look at from the eyes of Shastra Chakshush, how this is true. In Shri Ishopanishad, the invocation mantra says, Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Translation. The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete. And because He is completely perfect, all emanations from Him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because He is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from Him, He remains the complete balance. So now, this material universe and many material universes, there are innumerable universes, all these universes and all the planets within these universes are perfectly complete to solve the purpose for which they were created. It is because of the living entity's desire to enjoy and to engage in sense gratification, being influenced and being contaminated under the three modes of material nature, the living entities encroaching onto things that do not belong to them and causing miseries to themselves and as well as to others. Now, the very first verse in Shri Ishopanishad also identifies the Ishavasya principle, how one should be acting. So the verse is, Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatam jagat Tena tyaktena bhunjita ma gridhya kasasvedhanam. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself which are set aside as his quota, and should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. So this Ishavasya principle is very important. Srila Prabhupada also gave many examples, like if someone finds, if someone's walking and suddenly sees a $1 note on the ground, then what is, there are three responses one can give. The first response is that, it doesn't belong to me, so I'm going to ignore it. And that's also not very intelligent. However, it is, one is showing that, since it doesn't belong to me, I'm not going to be concerned with this particular $1 note and leave it as it is. The second one is actually worse, which is, defying the Ishavasya principle. If somebody sees the note and he picks it up and uses for his own sense gratification, that is where the person is going to cause misery to himself as well as to others. That particular attitude of encroaching onto someone else's property. However, the third response is the best response, where a person who sees the note on the ground, he picks it up and then he finds the owner of that note, who it belongs to, and then hands it over to that owner. And that is the proper response. So, devotees of the Lord, they understand that everything has been provided by the Lord and that they want to engage everything in this service of the Lord. And that is the proper use of their time as well as the purpose of the various things that are present in this material world. All the facilities and paraphernalia is being used in serving the Lordship. And so, that is the right way to live and only accept what is necessary for one's own living entity. Srila Prabhupada lived his life, with that attitude. Because again, he was constantly a role model, he has been, and that he showed by his own example how he was constantly 24/7 engaged in Lord Krishna's service, serving him with full faith and devotion, and he was engaging everyone who came in contact. Sometimes it is very nicely described that people would look at Srila Prabhupada, and just by looking at him, she could feel that aura around him. And when he spoke, they could feel that ecstasy, they could feel that transcendental bliss, that comes with spiritual association. So Srila Prabhupada carried Vaikuntha with himself. And this has been described so many times by his disciples and the devotees who met him. And so, coming from there, we are looking at, the conversation that happened between Draupadi and the queens of Lord Krishna. And all these queens, they were saying Lord Krishna's name. He was calling Lord Krishna by his name when they were narrating the incidents. Now, as a matter of etiquette, one should not take the name of their husband or their spiritual master. However, Acharyas have explained that in this case it is appropriate because Lord Krishna's name is supreme name. So again, Lord Krishna is not different from his name. So they are associating with Lord Krishna just through his name as well, and which is very auspicious. There is no inauspicious aspect in this regard. And all these associates of Lord Krishna, they had gathered at Kurukshetra, where the Yadus were performing various sacrifices, and all were just focusing on, glorifying the Lord. They were completely immersed in the transcendental bliss of glorifying the name, form, activities, and pastimes of the Lord. And so they were feeling transcendental bliss. And these are the signs of a pure devotee. So the signs of a pure devotee in Bhagavad Gita are also explained in chapter 10, verse 9. Madchitta madgat prana bodhayantaha parasparam kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. Madchitta, always thinking of me. Madgat prana, devoting their lives to me. So like serving the Lord throughout their lives. Bodhayantaha parasparam, and preaching about me. Kathayantascha mam nityam, and conversing about me, conversing with each other about me. Tushyanti cha ramanti cha. Now tushyanti comes from tushti. Tushti is that which gives full satisfaction, which gives that pleasing feeling to one's heart. Ahatukiya pratihata yayadma suprasiddhati. That suprasiddhati is like the satisfaction. So tushyanti cha ramanti cha. Ramanti comes from word Ramana, which is from Ram, which is like, feeling transcendental bliss, feeling that ocean of bliss, immersing constantly in that ocean of bliss. So that is with that particular feeling, all these associates of Lord Krishna, they were constantly immersing in that bliss and constantly enjoying it. Tushyanti cha ramanti cha. Now, someone can say that, how is it so easy? The yogis and the Mayavadis and so forth, they are like so much working so hard. How is it possible that the devotees can make so quick advancement? Then in Srimad Bhagavatam in 10th canto, 14th chapter, Lord Brahma praying to Lord Krishna reveals this secret. And the secret has been given in the form of a metaphor. So it's very important for us to understand this one. Lord Brahma is saying to Lord Krishna, he is praying to Lord Krishna, Samashita ye pad pallava plavam mahat padam puni yasho murare bhavam bhuri vatsa padam param padam 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 yata vipadam natesham. Samashita is having taken shelter. Ye pad pallava pravam. So those who have taken shelter, pada means feet. So who have taken shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. And Pallava. Pallava is the soft blooding lotus bud. So the lotus feet of the Lord are as soft as the flower buds. And plavam is boat. So these lotus feet of Lord Krishna are just like that perfect boat. Mahatpadam Puni Yasho Murari. Now Mahatpadam has two meanings. Mahat also means this material universe, and the other one is of great soul. So Mahatpadam, which is the goal of the great soul, and also which is also the shelter of this material universe. So, Lord's lotus feet are also the shelter of this universe and as well as the shelter of the great souls. Punya Yasho Murari, and this is glorifying that, the killer of the demon Mura. So Lord is glorified by the name Murari, which means the killer of the demon Mura. Bhava Ambudhir, Bhava Ambudhir. Bhava is this material universe. Ambudhi is like ocean. So this material world is like a vast ocean. But for devotees who have taken shelter to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, it appears like, water in a calf's hoof print. So that is what it turns on. It's very easy to cross over, water filled in a calf's hoof print. So very easily the devotees are able to cross over this material universe. And what are they able to achieve? They are able to achieve Parampadam, the supreme abode they are able to achieve. And not Padam Yatavibdam Natesham, and not remain at a place where there is Vipad. Vipad is misery at every step. There is danger at every step. Padam. So such is the destination of one who has surrendered to the lotus feet of Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in the narration we heard like how Yudhishthira as well as all the other associates, the Yadavas and the Queens of Krishna, they had fully surrendered. And now surrender has 6 limbs, we also covered in the previous chapter. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya vivarjanam rakshisyatiti vishvaso gopatitve varnam tatha apanikshepa karpane sadvidha sharanagati. Anukulyasya sankalpya, accepting what is favorable to one's spiritual advancement or devotion to Krishna. Pratikulyasya vivarjanam, which is rejecting or avoiding everything that is not favorable, which is unfavorable to the spiritual advancement or devotion to Lord Krishna. Then, Rakshisyati iti vishvaso, and the third aspect is, having full vishvaso means having full faith that Lord will provide protection, raksha, Lord will provide protection. Gopatitve varnam tatha, so embracing the guardianship of Lord Krishna. And then Atma Nikshepa, fully surrendering, which is the 5th aspect, is fully surrendering to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Karparnye, and the last 6th aspect is understanding one's lowly position and being humble. So humility is paramount for this advancement. Sadvita Sharanagati. So these are the 6 limbs of Sharanagati. So these have been explained. And just by surrendering to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, one can advance. And we see from the signs of these pure devotees that they were constantly, engaged in glorifying the Lord, His name, form, activities, pastimes. And by such glorification, they had, transcended the 3 modes of material nature, as well as they had transcended even the feeling of those 3-fold types of miseries that comes from, Adibhuta, Adideva, and Adhyatmic miseries. So they had transcended those states, and they were constantly immersed in the transcendental bliss of, His pastimes, and they were feeling jubilation, and they were feeling, full satisfaction. Tushyanticha ramanticha. So that is the message we should take from this particular chapter, as to how everyone at that particular sacrificial arena was constantly glorifying the Lord and feeling that transcendental bliss. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments? Gantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Anant Kauri Vaishnava ki jai, Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.